Thank you for tuning in to the Island Treasures podcast. We value the insights shared by our guests and host, but it's important to note that their personal experiences are intended to inform and encourage, and not to replace professional, legal, or medical advice. With that, we are ready for today's exciting episode. Hi there, I'm Alison Van Schie, host of the Island Treasures podcast for caregivers. And in this segment, I will be sharing some nuggets of wisdom, or shall I say treasures, from the Island Treasures treasure chest. Today we're revisiting an episode from Season 2, entitled The Musician's Daughter, which features Betsy Haddad. Betsy's caregiving story involved caring for her dad, Edward, who had Alzheimer's disease, and supporting her mum, who was Edward's primary caregiver. Betsy exhibited a deep love and concern for both her parents and enjoyed a special bond with her dad and their love for music. Even though Betsy's mum had a great support system, including Betsy described some of the challenges that she experienced when respecting their wishes, as Betsy had wishes for her parents of her own, such as hoping they would live closer to her. Let's take a listen.
My mom has a great support network of friends, and she's also been extremely proactive in looking up local resources. She comes from a long line of stoic Yankee women who did not complain about anything. They just did what they had to do. She just shoulders it all. I don't think she asks for nearly the help that she could, but I'm always glad to do what I can. I wish I could do more.
Your concern is for her, that she's
Yes.
looking after herself and your dad, and is she taking the necessary rest and care for herself?
Probably not. I know she's put off a surgery that she has to have done on her foot for some time because she's worried about, care for my dad during that time. So that's been a source of concern, but it's more her mental health. When I see her getting frayed around the edges and so stressed, it's heartbreaking for me. One of the hardest things for me to keep in mind is that as an adult child, my role is a support role. It's not a decision-making role. If she wanted my advice, she'd ask that. She doesn't need to have, hear necessarily my opinion on something, but she needs my support. So my job is to support her emotionally in what she decides needs to be done for my dad. And that's hard sometimes because, maybe what she's going to decide isn't always the thing that I wish would happen. Actually, I was hoping they would move closer. There's a very good facility that's just 1 mile down the road from me. And it's got what I think sounds like a really great setup where they've got these bungalow type houses on a campus with a memory care unit, an assisted living facility. Earlier on, there were junctures where he could have taken a more active role in deciding, here's where I want to be, or here's what's going to happen to me. Like where they have the bungalow houses. I wished so much that they would have moved there earlier when I think it would have been easier to make the transition instead of waiting. And it's hard to face that maybe it's not possible. I'm even still, I'm sort of in denial, I think, about that. Maybe it's still possible, but I can't say what my mother will decide is necessary. Most of all, I want to see him comfortable, but of course his safety is also key, and it has to be a balance with what my mother needs. So she is really the one that has to say that. And because she's been so proactive and has wisely lined up so many resources, she actually has a companion that will come in almost all of the weekdays. That's sort of a buddy to my dad. And he's just a little bit older than my dad, but still able to drive. And so he sort of pals around with my dad, and they go out and, they're partners in crime. They go shopping or they go out to eat and they drive around. It's really great. It's exactly what my mom needs in terms of a break and sort of a help. And it's great for my dad too. He gets someone to talk to, listen to his stories. And so this very patient man goes around and spends some time with my dad. So in that, I think that we're really fortunate.
As you heard, Betsy's mum had a great support system and was proactive in identifying resources, such as the companion that they found for Edward. And here's some more on other engaging activities that they found for him.
There was a thing called Arts the Spark, which was a fantastic program put on at our local art museum, Orlando Museum of Art. And he would get to go to this art class and spend time looking at art and actually doing a craft project. There was also something called Brain Flex. That was a place where he would go to a facility and sit in sort of a class atmosphere with other people. And they would do brain puzzles and different kinds of brain activities. He loved that. It was really great for him.
Then, of course, there's the role that music played in Betsy's and her dad's life. Listen to some of Betsy's thoughts on music.
Music is like a language. And as long as you can speak it, I think it helps you in some way, whether it's queuing up memories, whether it's helping in some linear way to help the mind complete the task of just, running your fingers over the keys. But my mother has always believed that one of the reasons his decline has been not as precipitous as with some other folks is because of that music. She has encouraged him to keep on playing, and he's done that, and it is such a gift. This past Sunday, though, she said that he wasn't able to remember the songs, and it was really painful for her too. I know that it was. That's tough. That's hard to watch that slip away, but there's still so much that he can do, and we try to focus on that.
Focusing on what he still is able to do is such a positive approach in caregiving, as is gratitude. Betsy shares how her mother expresses her appreciation for all that they have been able to do together. Take a listen to this clip.
My mom shared with me recently that she was really glad that they traveled so much when they were in their 50s because of this. And they were square dancers. I think that's another thing that really helps is remembering dance steps. My mom believes very strongly in that and the value of physical activity and specifically dance. So they would go to this club. They had little outfits that matched, and they still have the clothes, but they haven't danced in a while. They have bicycles also. So they try to, walk around their neighborhood and bike when they can.
Wonderful. And I think with square dancing too, you've got the music and the cues.
With Betsy's experience and observations of what her parents were going through because of her dad's Alzheimer's, she suggests that we all think about what we would want if we were the ones experiencing all these changes in our lives.
If I could advocate for anything, it would be for people who are my age, or any adult child at any point. Think about yourself in the position that my parents are in now. Think about it decades in advance. We don't know, how our lives are going to end. We don't know what kind of diagnosis we're going to get. But if you were to get a diagnosis like this, what would you want to happen to you? We know what the end game is with this cruel disease. How do you want your days to be spent at that point? Put that down in writing. Make sure that you talk about it. If you have a spouse, make sure that you are in agreement. That's what I hope for anyway. And I certainly hope that, folks in my age that are seeing their parents suffering with this are being more proactive, trying to increase the options and, those housing options I mentioned. I hope that we're going to see more of those. And maybe there will be better options for having care come in so that people will have the dignity to be in their homes if that's what they choose. I have to say, having my teenage sons be so close to my parents to see all this, in a way, I hesitate to say I'm thankful because this is a horrible thing to go through. But one of the things that I'm drawing from it is that I believe very strongly that it's our duty to serve and take care of our parents as best as we can, to be a support to them. I hate that distance separates many families so much for whatever reason that it's necessary, but I want my sons to see that I expect them always to help their grandparents as much as they can, and that I do that always. So we spend a lot of time together. And just as we were coming home from dinner with my parents earlier this evening, and my oldest teenage son, and in the car driving back, he was like, "Well, Mom, I guess we better talk about this. What if it's genetic and all this?" And, we sort of laughed in a way. He said, "Well, you better live long enough to pay the mortgage off. Ha ha." But in all reality, he asked me directly. He actually said, "What would you want, Mom? Where would you want to be?" And I told him straight out. I said, "Honey, I would want to be in this house. I would want to be in my home." Or second to that, if I had a partner, I think that kind of bungalow housing is very appealing. I would like to do that. And I would make a move early on, really ideally, not that there's any kind of ideal in this situation, but as soon as I would receive a diagnosis like that, if I knew it was really Alzheimer's, I would make that move right away because I would still have some cognitive function then, and I'd be able to adjust to my new surroundings and, think of it as my home and allow my family to be able to come here and visit me and get comfortable with it, as opposed to later when it would be so disorienting and confusing to do that.
So by expressing her wishes to her son, Betsy took the first steps in advanced care planning. But there's more that can be done when it comes to advanced care plans.
I probably have to do some legwork on the putting it in writing part.
Yeah.
I haven't been really good about that. I'm embarrassed to say that I don't have a will set up. I should. Of course, I
Oh,
have life insurance through my work, but I have beneficiaries, but I haven't done that part.
okay. This is your accountability podcast.
Yes, it is. Next time you see me, I better have that done. And I
Yeah.
did make an appointment with a financial advisor, so I got that lined up. I'm going to talk about that.
Oh, good for you. Look at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
advice you're giving to other folks. You're actually taking yourself,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
what we need to hear.
Yes, I am doing that.
Hearing Betsy's own considerations if she were to receive a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, I asked Betsy how she copes with her dad's diagnosis of Alzheimer's.
That's a great question. And I hope this doesn't sound morbid because I find myself doing it sometimes, but I have conversations with myself about it sometimes. I talk about him. I talk about the things that I love about him, things that I would want to tell other people, like things that I would say later when he's gone that I would tell other people about him. Because I think it's a way to keep those parts of him alive when I tell the stories about him. And most of all, when I sing the songs, sometimes, like I said, even when I sing, it's such a joyful thing to sing with him, but it's hard. Like my eyes will well up with tears. I cry a lot. I feel like, I do that. I do a little bit of journaling. Like I try to write
Oh,
down the
good.
things that I want to
Yeah.
remember. Yeah, that helps. But sometimes my life just gets so busy and I forget to write about something that I want to write down. But I guess I would call it pre-grieving.
Yeah.
Sounds so horrible, doesn't it? But
Oh.
it's like, I guess maybe it's therapeutic. I don't know if it is, but I just can't help myself from thinking about that because it's like this sword of Damocles that hangs over you. Like you know what's coming, but you
Yeah.
just don't know when. So I just feel like maybe I'll have a better chance of holding it together. If it's like cathartic, I guess. I've always found comfort in music. I listen to it constantly in the home as just background and as a support. So the music does help me. I listen a lot to the music that Dad and I love, and also certain classical music or church choral music that's very dear to me, certain hymns and things like that. And of course, my teenage sons are the light of my life, and they're so funny. They're doing so great in spite of all the challenges and their successes and their joy. They bear me up on a daily basis. Without them, I would just be lost at sea. But they're probably my main comfort, absolutely. And then I have pets. I have a pug dog. Actually, with my previous pug and this one that I have now, I signed them up as volunteers for Vitas Hospice. And what we do is it's called the Paw Pals program. We actually go into facilities and we just let people hold the animals, and they seem to derive a lot of comfort from it. And pugs are perfect for that. Pugs bring happiness. They really don't have any useful skills except that, bringing happiness.
But what other tips would you have for adult children caregivers?
Well, I mean, it's easy to say, be a comfort and support to your parents, but really just finding the joy in that. Don't miss out on any opportunities, even if it seems something so simple. Go to that dinner, take that trip. You will not regret it. Please make those opportunities for yourself to spend as much time as you can. And just, being a companion to them, take them out to do something fun. I mean, the stuff I do with Dad is nothing great. Seriously, one of the things he loves is going to the thrift store. And we putter around in there. It takes him forever. It's exasperating if you're on a schedule, but try to not have a schedule. Really just try to be patient. I forgot to say this because I've been shedding a few tears here, but laugh, try to laugh. And I would just, encourage everybody to always enjoy the time that you have. And like I said, try to think ahead to the future before it's there for you. Don't let that take the joy away. I mean, life is a cabaret, so, enjoy it.
And with that, I hope Betsy has inspired you to find the joy within caregiving for your loved one and to start planning for your own future as it relates to your health care. For more details from our conversation, I invite you to listen to the full podcast episode called The Musician's Daughter, and you'll hear the significance of Betsy's words reminding us that life is a cabaret. That concludes this Treasure Chest segment from the Island Treasures podcast for caregivers. If you want to send a text to the Island Treasures podcast about this episode, be sure to click the link in the show notes and watch for a reply in a future episode. Thank you for tuning in today. Take care.